Welcome to this digital lecture. So having decided to start the business, the entrepreneur needs to have a plan to produce products or supply services and to attract the optimum marketing, operations, management team and financing to get the business off to a good start. Now this plan needs to address all these key areas in order that it becomes a credible discussion document between the entrepreneur and whoever the intended audience happens to be, which could include the business owners themselves, their employees, financial investors, landlords, suppliers or enterprise support agencies. Now the time frame covered by the plan can vary depending on the stage of development and the needs of the business, and it's important to reiterate that a plan is not the truth. It's simply a construct of the entrepreneur's vision which outlines their goals and how they plan to achieve them. Now some plans take only a few hours to write, while others can take years, and this is simply a reflection of the entrepreneur's level of commitment to the idea and also the stage that they are at in the business venturing process. So in this session we'll examine how to take a business model and use a feasibility plan to develop the product and identify the framework needed to convert this into a real business. So in terms of learning outcomes, by the end of this session you should be able to explain the process of developing a feasibility plan, apply the process of feasibility planning to your own business idea, and also build a simple financial model for your own business idea which takes account of both the revenue streams and also the cost structure. Now having an idea is not enough to launch a business. We also need to demonstrate that our idea and the business opportunity it offers has been thoroughly thought through. And the process for doing this is as follows. Firstly, we need to carry out some research, and here we're looking to improve our general knowledge around the idea itself. Then we have prototyping, which involves coming up with a basic idea for a product which is both aesthetic and practical. And then we have feasibility planning, where we'll build a structure for a business in order to determine if it's worth pursuing. But we've also got to think about market testing, and here we need to come up with a logical approach to test our product with real customers before committing to a full launch. Now remember that, as with the business model, any plan for the business should be viewed very much as a work in progress and as a cycle which is continuous. And the key elements of this cycle are, firstly, we need to learn, and to do this we need to be open to new ideas, conduct research, speak to a diverse range of people and get them to help us firm up our basic idea. We also need to experiment, and here we apply what we've learned and try different things out, and we should start early and fail early, risking only what we can afford to lose, and in doing so we'll learn from the process as we go along. And then we need to plan, and here we reflect on the learning experimentation process and plan what we're going to do next. And finally we'll reshape, and here we adapt and modify the original idea based on all the things that we've learned along the way. Now the business plan is basically a written document that explains and analyses an existing or a proposed business model. However, simply developing a business plan will not in itself guarantee success. The business plan is basically simply a set of guesses, and it's not possible to accurately predict the future. Therefore, uncertainty cannot be eliminated from the process. And if the business plan is to have any credibility, it's essential that the information used in the plan is accurate, unbiased and up to date. There's no universal ideal length of the plan, and this will depend very much upon the nature and level of complexity of the business idea which you're trying to explain and explore. There are a number of different types of plan used in the context of business. However, the most common of these are strategic plans, business plans and feasibility plans. Strategic plans set out the long-term focus of the business. Business plans focus on the operational issues, and feasibility plans highlight basically whether an idea is doable or not. Now in this module we'll be using a feasibility plan to demonstrate that our idea is desirable, viable and feasible. And in this session I'll take you through the process of developing a feasibility plan step by step. But first, watch this short video which provides a brief overview of the key stages in this process.
Using Powtoon.
So for assignment 1, you need to submit the following documents, and we'll be discussing and completing these support documents as we progress through the module. In addition to the core feasibility study, we also need to submit a business model canvas, a market test tool, an opportunity screening checklist, and also a basic budget planner. Now that we have developed a viable business model, we need to consider the next step in the process, namely the development of a credible plan. Now, we've established that the plan is not the truth, and we've established that developing the plan itself will not guarantee success. But what we need to consider here is that we need to answer all the basic questions that the audience will expect us to have the answers to. And basically these questions fall into the following categories. Is there a business there at all? Does it have a reasonable chance of success? Could it be profitable? And could we logically gather all the resources we need in order to get the business off the ground? The feasibility plan contains far less detail than a traditional business plan, and the functions of the plan itself are to communicate the business model, to convey the credibility of the business idea, to be an organising tool for the entrepreneur, and also to show that it can actually be done. And the actual process of business planning is as follows. Firstly, we need to set preliminary goals. Here we need to determine who our audience is, what they want to know, and how they will use the information that we're giving them. Once some basic research has been completed, the entrepreneur should review this and, if necessary, modify the original goals in order to develop a basic outline for the plan. This outline should provide enough detail to be useful to both the entrepreneur and their audience, and it's basically the skeleton of the final plan itself. Generally, the first draft of a plan leaves more questions than answers, and this is a normal part of the process. Most entrepreneurs simply sit down and write the plan itself, giving little thought to the process involved. And here are a few top tips you consider if you want to approach this process in a more structured way. So the plan itself should firstly use normal language. You should write the plan in plain language, because if you don't understand the terminology, then no one else will. It should also be professionally presented. You're using the plan to effectively set out your stall, so it needs to look the part. And it should also be written for an outsider. You should assume the reader has no personal knowledge of the subject, as they probably won't. And then you should be really focused with your plan. You should keep it simple and don't overcomplicate things. And the plan should also be based on reality. Overly optimistic statements or claims which you can't support will just undermine your credibility. And you also need to avoid using jargon. Technical jargon will only raise the need for the reader to ask lots more questions, and that's ultimately defeating the purpose of the plan itself. And it's also worth noting that no two business plans are the same, and the level of detail for each section of the plan will depend on how complex the business idea actually is. So let's now look at the overview of the business. Now, the overview of the business is more than just a simple introduction. It's basically the whole plan, only shorter. And in many cases, the people who read your plan won't go any further than the overview or an executive summary and the financials. The overview should be a vision of what you want to achieve, and you should ideally wait until you've finished the plan before writing it. The length of the overview depends on the complexity of the business. So next we need to give some thought to the staffing requirements of the business, and here we're talking about both management and employees. And remember, these are likely to be the same people carrying out these roles in a small business. The actual amount of people needed will depend on the size of the business itself, and also the skills and experience of those running the business and the requirements of the business. As organisations grow, the entrepreneur's role must change. The managing role needs to adapt to increases in the numbers of employees and the volume and complexity of the work which needs to be carried out. And when thinking about the best structure for the business, you'll need to address the following issues. Firstly, with strategy and operations, you need to think about what tasks the enterprise actually needs to perform. Then there's organisation, and here we're thinking about how the tasks should be structured and coordinated. Then we have basic staffing. We need to think about who should do the work and what skills do they have or need to have to help them to do this. And then we also have to think about the cost implications of this. Can you actually afford to pay someone to do the work, or should you just do the work itself initially or in the short term? Now, very few individuals actually manage to get a business off the ground, and this is because not everyone has a desire to start a business, and of those that do, not all will attempt to start up, and of those who attempt, not all will succeed in starting up. The information in this section must demonstrate that the management and staff have the necessary skills, experience and qualities, and the information provided here should include key information about the management team and key staff, an explanation of the role in the business, details of relevant experience within the business, details of any skills gaps, and also details of any additional training required. So now let's look at business objectives, and in this section you should list all the major goals that you set for your business along with the objectives that you have to achieve these goals. And it's important to demonstrate here that these objectives are achievable by including specific numbers and dates where appropriate. And the following timeframes can be useful when filling in this section. In terms of short term, think about 0 to 12 months, medium term 12 to 36 months, and for long term think about 36 months onwards. Business objectives should be SMART, i.e. they should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time bound. This example of simple short, medium and long term objectives has been taken from a real business and illustrates the concept of a SMART objective.